Okay, they're gonna drive, I guess, around. It's too cold to drive around the neighborhood. It's really demoralizing.
Dovato is for some adults who are starting HIV-1 treatment or replacing their current HIV-1 regimen, which is 2 medicines in 1 pill. Dovato is as effective as the 40-drug regimen to help you reach and stay undetectable. Research shows people who take HIV treatment as prescribed and get to and stay undetectable can no longer transmit HIV through sex. Don't take Dovato if you're allergic to its ingredients, or if you take dofetilide. Taking Dovato with dofetilide can cause serious or life-threatening side effects. Hepatitis B can become harder to treat while on Dovato. Don't stop Dovato without talking to your doctor, as your hepatitis B may worsen or become life-threatening. Serious or life-threatening side effects can occur, including allergic reactions, lactic acid buildup, and liver problems. If you have a rash and other symptoms of an allergic reaction, stop Dovato and get medical help right away. Tell your doctor if you have kidney or liver problems, or if you are, may be, or plan to be pregnant.
Okay.
Dovato may harm your unborn baby.
The for each loop is a JavaScript method alternative to a generic for loop, where if one were to use just the for loop, they would be required to include a conditional statement such as a conditional test statement or expression between, in order to determine the loop length, for instance, or the count. You would have to, for instance, here.
Hi, sweetheart. You don't have to get me a thing for the holidays. Just get the COVID booster.
For loop.
Peace of mind. Everyone 16 and older is eligible for a COVID booster now. Visit covid19.nj.gov. This closed captioning sponsorship is
See, here's the conditional statement for loop, where a variable is assigned a starting value, where the variable would represent the count or the index of how many iterations that loop runs. The statements in between its opening and closing curly braces. This is the statement, or what would be statements if more than one were here, that would execute or run based off the condition of this statement within the opening and closing. Great, here we go again. Parentheses. This is the opening parenthesis. This is the closing parenthesis. Where the test for the for loops condition would be for every time the value stored in the variable that has the assignment as the first parameter in the for loop. In this case, if that variable, for every time that variable is still less than the value assigned to the right of the less than operator, this is the less than operator. So for I, the value in the variable I is equal initially to the value of 0. From that point onward, it checks the second parameter passed to this for loop here.
It takes a long time to make a fruitcake. It takes about,
for every time I is still less than the value that is assigned to the right side, or the right operands to the less than operator, which here is the value 9. for as long as that's true, it takes the value that's currently in I, and in this case, it increments it by 1, meaning it adds the value of 1 for every to the value that's stored in I every time it loops through this. So then here, instead of where it initially begins with the value of 0, it checks whether or not I is less than, in this case, it would be the value 9, and then it would take that value in I and then add 1 to it for every time up until I is equal to the value of 9. For that, 9, the value 9 is not less than 9, but 8 is. Value 8 is, but value 9 is not less than the value of 9. See? So then, if it was the value of 8, it would add 1 to it, and then it would take the value stored in string and appends, in this case, since it's a string, it would append the value that was last stored in I. And in this case, when I'm talking about if it was the value 8, it would print the value 9 as the last. 8, I should say. Okay. It ignores anything greater than the value 8. Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, here. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it starts with 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. And so on up until, it's already has a, it already tests for that 9 is not less than 9, so it doesn't add or display 8 plus 1, which would be 9. Okay. Unless there was a less than or equal to here. If it had an equal sign here, then it would print out the value 9 there. See where I'm down here. Okay. Now, if let's say you wanted to iterate through an array list. I'll go back to the for each loop in a second. Iterate through. Right. Congratulations. It's a happy day, isn't it? There is a property that's available for the array prototype of if you use the dot operator followed by its property method that would hold the length of that array would be the property that would hold the length of all the things that are stored in the array based on the timing this loop is executed within the code. So if let's say there's 2 here, for instance, there's 2 even though this has the index value of 0, This has the index value of 1. There's a total of 2 pairs of quotes. That's one pair, and followed by the second pair. And the data in between those quotes, that's the second pair of quotes, opening and closing. There's a total of 2 values, separate, delimited by a comma here. So right here is my an array with the identifier of my string array given these 2 values, where it's assigned with the appropriate syntax of an opening and closing bracket, followed by the delimited list, where then the data, this data in the appropriate syntax is stored into this variable as an array based off of the appropriate syntax of an opening and closing bracket, followed by the detectable opening and closing quotation marks separated or delimited by commas. This is considered, becomes implicitly an array prototype, or prototype, in JavaScript. Where then the programmer had created a variable with the identifier name of array length that is camel cased with the capital letter following the second word concatenated to another word to create the variable or identifier name of array length to hold the length of this array, my string array, using the value that's stored in the prototype of an array, in this case my string array, the prototype or template having a callable way of determining the value of its length by calling its dot length property to an array prototype in JavaScript. So there's 2 here, 1, 2. That's the length of the my string array, you see. And then so the array length here is has the value of 2 and is passed to this for loop, where it tests after assigning the variable with the variable I initially with the value of 0 and testing it for every iteration that the array executes. It tests whether or not I is less than the array length, the value stored in array length, which would be the value of 2, because there are 2 values, 1, 2, separated or delimited by a comma. That data is stored in there, and then the prototype or template for an array in JavaScript has a property that is callable that holds or stores the length of a detectable array, which